your goodness in me nourish my soul. All the more till your love overflows into my home. For I'm married in the fountain. Good day and welcome back to Marriage in the Fountain. In our previous session, Lizette and I sat together and we spoke about what spirit do I allow in my house. And in that conversation, we spoke about it from the aspect that Lizette and myself are on the same page with this. We consciously working in the spirit together, we're learning together, and we're mindful of the atmosphere that we guard in our home. And what if that is not the picture? What if, for whatever reason, my spouse is blind to what they're allowing into the home? The question I want to throw at you, Rob, is, are my hands cut off? Can I do nothing about this? Must I just accept that, well, anger is going to flow into our house every time that these friends come around for a braai? Or the overuse of alcohol is going to be part of the family chaos around Christmas time every time. It's just, that's how it is. I must just accept it. What can I do about it?
Okay. Well, I think I need to speak into this broadly, and the very broad picture is many Christians don't believe in spiritual atmospheres. Many Christians don't understand that spiritual things have spiritual dominion in different places and over different people, depending on how much authority they're given. So very often we will see that a spouse may say, I don't believe in that stuff. Right? Then I remind you of the story of the blind man and the moon.
Which is?
Well, there was a blind man who had been blind from birth, and his friend took him outside and in the evening, and he said, oh, there is a beautiful full moon out. And he said, what's the moon? And he said, well, it's a planet out in the sky that reflects the light of the sun, and it's really looking glorious. And the man said, I can't see it. So he said, no, well, obviously you can't, you're blind. He said, well, then I don't believe it's there.
There we go.
And his friend said to him, whether you believe it or not, it is.
Yeah.
All right. And in these terms of spiritual atmospheres and allowing things in and out of our homes, if we don't believe in it, it doesn't make them go away.
Yes. And the influence is still going to be there.
Absolutely.
In fact, it's got more sway because I'm not mindfully
You're blind of it. You're blind of it. So speaking of it in general terms, even when we are aware, and I think I'm fairly aware, I work with this all day. I have people like Monique and Julie who are very discerning of spirits, but I work all day, and I can often walk into the house and Julie will just pick up, there's something different about me, and she will say, who did you see today? Yeah. It's a common question in our house. And I'm not offended by it because I know that it's not a judgment. She's just picked up that I've walked into the house and something was different. Right? And then I'll sort of think it through, and I'll say, well, I'll have to pray that through, and I'll go to the Lord and say, Lord, who did I see that I could have picked something up? Yeah. Sometimes I'll say to her, what are you discerning? Yes. And then it's instant, and I know exactly where I've picked it up. Yeah. All right? But I have a very discerning wife, so that not everybody would be in that space. But often if you have a very discerning partner, the other one is skeptical. Okay. Because they always think everything is spiritual, you know, and so then they become, oh, that's you again. So then they don't take it seriously. But I've learned over the years, you listen to discerners. I mean, you and I know that. Yeah. We've seen over the years where our discerners...
Praise God for discerners.
where they've warned us and we said, no, 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 and then we ended up with blood on our nose. But so it's that first level of just being able to speak to one another and to be able to say, wow, that's not the best you I'm seeing. There's something going on here. And that's an openness to speaking to one another, but it's also a recognition of, well, Rob, when you are affected by that, I'm not worried just about the household. You are being affected by it and you can't see it. Yes. So it's actually go back to God and find out what is it that you've just brought into the house. Now, I haven't committed any sin, But what I have done is I've been part of a conversation, or I've been part of an atmosphere where I've allowed that to stick to me, as it were.
Yes, some dirt splattered on me.
Yes, I myself didn't do anything wrong, and Julie's just saying, whoa, that's coming into our house. I'm not going to have that.
Yeah.
And that's easy, and then we can both pray about it and move on.
Yes.
But I know of other occasions where I've come into the house and Julia said, what is that? And I've been offended.
Yeah.
Like, are you judging me? No, she's not. And this is a really important thing for us to understand. If I'm discerning something, it's not judgment, because we judge based on facts. Discernment is based on a revelation from the Spirit.
Yes.
So when the Spirit reveals something, that's not judgment. I can't judge you and say, oh, Garth came in with this spirit, or Garth is that, or if I don't have any facts.
Yeah.
If I saw Garth doing something, then I mustn't call it discernment. Then it's judgment.
Yes.
All right. So oftentimes when we say that spirit, it creates a level of animosity.
As if I own it.
Or you accusing me, or whatever the case is. So a really important factor is when your spouse who brings something in, make sure you don't judge them. It's the number one. So if I'm not going to judge it, I need to pray about it.
Yes.
Because remember, whenever I discern something, I should be saying, Lord, why are you showing this to me?
I think an aspect to remember there is I'm not picking sides for or against my spouse, because my battle is not against flesh and blood.
No.
My battle is for my spouse.
Yes.
And I'm picking up anger is coming into the house with my spouse now.
Yes.
A mystical attitude or whatever. Depression's just hit my spouse there.
Yeah.
I'm fighting for her.
Yes.
So my language need to convey that very, very clearly. Concern for you, but also, as you say, my prayer needs to be, I'm not praying against my depressed wife.
No.
I'm praying for my
And
wife
by the way,
who's
my
suffering
wife's
from
not depressed, but she's come in with that attitude, and I
Yes.
know she's not depressed.
That's not
So,
her.
so
Yeah.
that isn't, you see, she's not her best Julie, or I'm not my best Rob
That's
when I
very
walk
well
in.
said, yeah.
You know, and so my prayer is, Lord, set them free.
Yeah.
That's my prayer. Okay, how do I address it? Now that becomes part of my communication with my wife.
Yeah.
If we have this kind of, like you and Lizette have, open communication, you can speak about it.
Yeah.
If, however, you don't believe in spiritual
Yeah.
things, and Lizette wants to address it with you, then her number one thing is, Lord, how do I address this?
Yeah.
Because we don't have a tick list. We have a relationship in the top here with the Lord that
Yes.
says, there's something wrong on that side. I need to get it right on my side. Lord, you can overflow into that side. If I go this way, it's going to be destruction.
Yeah.
So the key thing is to be able to go back to the Lord and say, I need a strategy. All right? Then obviously when the relationship manifests in sin, when this spiritual thing starts manifesting in sin, then I have to address the sin.
Yeah.
I can't be silent on the sin. I can't sort of pretend it's not happening. So you said people come into your house and they get drunk. Well, you've got to address that.
Yes.
It's not going to happen again.
Yeah.
All right? And then when they leave, you've got to be able to say, well, I hope that spirit of addiction doesn't stick around in my house. No, we're going to clean it out.
Yes. Purposefully.
We're going to purposefully pray it out. So there is that thrust of being able to say, okay, God, I'm recognizing that somebody is bringing something in, but it's causing sin. This is sin. And we call sin sin. We don't say, oh, they're not nice people.
Yeah.
No, they're very nice people, but they sin. So this is our choice. Do we allow them in, or do we address the sin part of it? And I think that's where, as a culture, we're not good.
Yeah, it requires some bold communication. But again, in that aspect, just to keep in mind that I'm for my spouse.
Oh,
We
absolutely.
only have one marriage. So however I speak about it, however I pray about it, I need to know I'm for, not against. We're not fighting against one another.
No.
there's a spiritual atmosphere around that wants to bring destruction in this relationship.
Well,
And-
it is
and I'm
bringing,
for
but
it.
it is bringing it if there's sin in the house.
Yes. Yes.
So you're always using the right, you see, we're not using worldly terms.
No.
We're using God terms.
Yes.
You know, we're talking about sin, and we're talking about spirit, and we're talking about influence, and we're talking about atmosphere. These are Bible terms.
Yeah.
So when that person, let's say I say to Julie, I'm inviting all my mates over for a Clivia meeting,
Yeah.
and we'll misbehave ourselves. Julie must come and say, you know, you didn't just spend too much money,
Yeah.
but you also, the language was unacceptable. We don't speak like that in our house.
Yeah.
What happened, Rob?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I didn't want to upset my friends, and, you know, not in our house.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't think it was that bad, because that's often what happens.
Yeah.
Well, hang on a second, we're one. And the one part of the one was very uncomfortable.
Yeah, Lizette and I used that example in our chat about this just now, where she had to come to me once and say, listen, this particular friend, he was in a Bible study of us, and we spent some time sporting together and things, and he says every time that he's around, he was still a bachelor at the time, he loved real masochistic jokes, you know,
Yeah.
just part of who he is, really stabbing a bit. And it's really humbling for me that she had to come and say, every time he's here, you laugh with that. And it doesn't make me feel good,
Yes,
you know? So you're allowing a spirit in the home that's not us.
yes,
Why do you do that? And I had to draw a line because he's a good friend.
yes,
And I just want to enjoy the friend.
yeah,
But it's not that part of it.
yes,
I cannot go that way because it's not good for my wife. But what I want to bring up is just the humility that it takes to take something like that and say, all right, it's okay for me. I don't see a problem with it,
yes.
but it's not good for you.
You see,
And I
what-
love you.
This one can't be two.
Yes.
So when the one of the one is saying, this spirit comes against my spirit, then that's when we need to be able to say, okay, I've got to make a change.
Yeah.
I've got to make a change. And for many, for many people, they will not call it spiritual. They'll just say, you're upset, you're this, and they won't see the spiritual element in it. But when we recognize that these things are spiritual, we realize that there is no ways that we can allow a spirit into our home because it will dominate.
Yeah.
And it's already dominated by upsetting Lizette.
Yeah. And
It's already
breaking
had an
relationship
influence.
between us.
There you go. And so, are your hands tied? No. I believe that you've got to go before the Lord and say, Lord, give me a way of dealing with this without it being judgment.
Yes.
And allow me to speak a language that we both understand.
There we go.
And when we speak that language, we then, and in agreement, now we walk in our home and we say, that doesn't have a place in our home. We take the authority back in our home. And then we keep the peace of our home. We keep it. It's our job together. It's not one's job or the other. We keep the peace in our home. And then both of us have connected back up to the top.
Yes.
And we're both in agreement that this is spiritual and it's unacceptable because it's sin. And remember, it's not opinion, it's sin.
Yeah.
And we've got to call sin sin.
Well said.
Yeah.